Hello, today I'll be discussing our final report for INFM 645. First, we'll discuss the risks and consequences. Risk is when an organization or individual is exposed to danger, harm, or loss. And according to the scenario, there were 5 risks that I noticed within the given scenario. One was that they allowed access for the provider by using his badge as a form of ID. Um, Next is that they were sending patient information electronically. Third was using a transcriber. Fourth is Dr. X entering patient's charts from home. And the fifth one is office manager entering patient information. The risk probability can be defined as chance that something or someone can affect the institution. Probability is not as clear as impact is. When developing probability, it is important to use the necessary tools to create a more accurate probability. That will actually eliminate the biasness from it all. Battle. There's a battle between measuring risk and estimating risk. Like I stated, measuring risk would be a way to kind of impact the way it is going to affect the organization. Estimating it is kind of giving a guess, and that's going to make it a more bias. It can range anywhere from between 0% to right below 100%. It's important to notate that risk can never be exactly at 100 because that means it's absolutely going to occur, and there's nothing that's that for sure. And it can't be at 0% neither, because then it will be showing it as not being a risk. Risk impact is considered to be driving force of the assessment. Impact can be defined as the price you pay when risk has occurred, or in other words, dealing with the outcomes after the risk has affected your organization or patient. There are 3 aspects to consider when calculating the risk, calculating the impacts of risk, and that's human impact, property impact, and business impact. Human impact would be patients, how the patient was affected mentally, physically. Property impact would be any equipment that's being used, kind of like your EHRs, your iPads, your phones, and your business impact would obviously be your organization and how that impacts the situation. Risk priority, depending on detrimental the impact is how high the risk is going to be, or where the risk falls. I mean, the priority of the risk falls. Um, so, for instance, the badge, allowing the provider to have access with the badge, is highly probability and catastrophic impact. So, this would be considered high priority. Electronic transfers, the probability is likely and the impact would be catastrophic. Therefore, it has a high priority. Transcriptionist, this risk has a as a possible probability and a critical impact, which will result with a moderate priority. And home access, this risk being likely probability with a serious impact equaling a moderate priority. Mitigation response. Risk mitigation could be explained as necessary action that needs to take place in order to alleviate or prevent risk from occurring. Those risks are risk acceptance, risk avoidance, and limitation and transfer. So acceptance would be that you realize that your organization is at risk and you understand that, and there's an understanding for that, so you take the proper precaution. Avoidance is obviously trying to avoid the risk from happening. Limitation is allowing it to not grow and not impact your organization as much. And risk transfer is when something is just way too big and out of your control, like maybe it's spreading to numerous patients, and at this point it's affecting identity, and so now the FBI has to be called, so you transfer it to them. um Three ways that I would mitigate, the risk for the given scenario is VPN, encryption, and proper login. VPN is going to assist with the provider accessing his information from home. That is going to put it on protected network, allowing him to still access his EHR, but protecting it in a way that others and hackers and outside um, people from the organization can't access the same things he's accessing. Encryption, when sending stuff electronically, it is very important to have an encryption. When you're sending it system to system, there is an encryption that happens that's coded for only that system to understand. So when you're sending an email or patient information via email, it is important to get it encrypted because there is no coding there um, to throw off the hackers. Like they'll understand exactly what's in an email. So an encryption is going to basically have the email locked. It's important to send the password with the email. In some cases, I know that I will send the encrypted email, and then in a follow up email, a different email, I'll send the password. Or I could be on the phone with the person I'm assisting and hand them the password via the phone. Um, Proper login is really important. That is so that's going to tie into two things with the risk. Proper login and proper entry is also should tie into this. Proper entry is just going to be not allowing him to go in with just a badge. Even taking a picture would have been a little bit better, but it is important to not just allow anybody access. Even in my case, when we do allow people access to our building, they're noted as a visitor. Like they have to wear a sticker or a badge that lets them know that they're a visitor, and then they're also escorted to where they need to be. Security escorts them to where they need to be. Proper login. I feel like anybody in your organization that will be using your system needs a proper login username, password. Therefore, we're able to track what he's seeing, what he's viewing, what he's sending, what he's saving. So it'll just definitely mitigate the issue. Next, we have ethics, privacy, and confidentiality. Ethics can be defined as framework for formally discussing ethical issues, taking into account the values and obligations of others. Privacy is the act to have the right of an individual to be left alone. It can also include the protection from an intruder, observing or entering persons' private affairs, and the right to maintain control over a personal and health information. Confidentiality is defined as limiting the exposure to patient information. It should be always private, kept private. If the information is shared to someone else other than the facility, it is important to get the patient's consent at all times. And that is going to conclude my presentation. Thank you for listening.